Hi, I'm Ray Gardner, spokesperson for Tango. This letter is from Sebastian Loys, a French exchange student. Sebastian says, I tried new blackcurrant Tango and didn't enjoy it as much as Tango's other flavors. Well, Sebastian, all I can say is sorry. We've done all we can. We try to provide satisfaction for all Tango drinkers, even if you're only visiting our great nation. It's not easy. My friend Jeff here has been working on BCT for 3 years. You're an exchange student, aren't you, Sebastian? All hair gel and fancy loafers. What are your credentials, Sebastian? What drives you? When did you last get up at 4 in the morning for something you believed in passionately? We don't need you, you hear? You're one dissenting voice in a billion, Johnny French, you're that! Yes, blackcurrant Tango is a charge to the taste buds. Yes, it's feisty. Yes, it's got guts. But so have we, Sebastian. Look at us! Come on then, Sebastian! Come on! Right here, right now! You and me! Come on, France! Europe! The world! I'll take you all on! I'm Ray Gardner! I drink blackcurrant Tango! Come and get me!
Hello there, I'm Keith Smith, Mythbuster for the famous vintage Tango Blackcurrant advert, which has caused quite a bit of stir this St. George's Day. Yes, it's jingoistic, yes, it pokes fun at the French, and yes, it's been around for years, but it's a fine example of British creativity and, like Henry Cooper, James Hunt, Peter Shilton and Eddie the Eagle, it's got staying power. We live in an information world where we have to sift out the bad from the good, the Gary Barlows from the Robbie Williams, the turkeys from the pheasants and the white lightning from the Chardonnay. So when someone recently reposted the commercial on LinkedIn as part of the St. George's Day observances, there was the usual pile-on of fans and wish we were theirs, and also quite a few people who asked, why don't we make TV ads as great as that anymore? And there were also quite a few myths and untruths posted in the comments on LinkedIn. So here's the director, Colin Gregg, and the location scout and manager, Greg Jordan, to correct any misinformation so that when you're next bragging to your friends at a dinner party and claiming that the Tango Blackcurrant advert was one of the finest TV ads ever made, you'll get your facts straight. Welcome, Colin Gregg and Greg Colin. Sorry, my old mate, Greg Jordan. Welcome, guys.
Hello.
Welcome. Yes. Nice to be here.
Nice to see you all. Now, I'm going to jump straight in on this. Colin.
Yes.
For this advert, you weren't a full-time ad director, were you? So when this was created. So how did you get this gig?
I think I was struggling. I think I'd done about a year's worth of commercials, and they'd been quite small. And because I was with a producer, Harry Rankin, who set up a production company that he wanted to have comedy directors, and he chose to find directors that had done TV work, so he worked with actors.
Right.
And I can't remember how this came to me. I don't know whether it came through Harry or it came through Anthony Taylor, my producer. But I was just called in to look at the script, to discuss it with the creatives, and I do think that all the directors that were shortlisted, I think they were all directors that had done a single shot in some way. And when I'd worked in TV with Greg as location manager, I mean, I was working in TV drama, and I was always trying to do the single shot. I was always trying to do an ITV episode 10 minutes long. I was trying to think, is there a way I can do this as a continuous shot?
So sorry, I didn't mean to jump in, but is the single shot some kind of unobtainable thing that every director tries to do?
Well, I think I spent enough time seeing, I grew up on Hitchcock doing single shots. And I also, we looked at Scorsese doing single shots. Those single shots tended to be just well choreographed with a bit of sleight of hand, but whether they were single shots or not single shots, whether there was wipes in there by people, I don't know. But so when I went for the interview and we sat and read the script, and I talked to the creatives about my idea, and I said, you know what, I think this, because it was never written anywhere, I just think this should be a single shot. And then they handed me a script, which was the script they'd written, but not the script that I had, which said, we see this as a single shot. Oh. So they were inviting directors to really come up with that solution on their own. And I think the directors that I was up against were 3 other directors who had done either promos as single shots. I think Brian Singer was one of the directors that were up for it. And I think in the end, because of my drama background and the fact I could show the mechanics of how I had managed to make shots work that looked as a single flowing shot, I think they were persuaded by the fact that I was thinking more of doing it like what's that Mel Gibson film? Just kind of rough and ready.
Right.
What was it?
What about the Mohican one?
Yeah, no, it was a Scottish one.
Oh, Braveheart. And I think they just wanted it to be like, grubby. They wanted it to be, I think a lot of directors had wanted it to be kind of quite heroic, and they wanted it to be quite grubby. They wanted it to be sort of whatever the weather was. If it was rainy, if it was wet, then they were happy with that. In fact, we had a bit of snow when we did it.
Yeah.
And so I think in the end, that what sold it was my drama background, the fact that I'd worked with actors. And then, but then that was kind of just the beginning, because we spent months on it.
Yeah.
Months
yeah.
on it.
Well, I've
and also I think that's the other thing, is that I was a director that had nothing in the calendar. So all those kind of big directors like the Paul Whalens, people like that, and who afterwards said, "Why don't I get a look at this script?" Well, you'd give it a week probably, because your schedules would be so busy that. Right. That that you wouldn't really have time to do. And now I think we spent 3 months on choreographing it and casting it, and Greg doing the locations and everything. So yeah.
Well, Greg, I mean, on to you, my friend. I mean, it looks like an absolutely massive production. I mean, was this planned right from the outset, or did it kind of evolve into that?
Well, not for me. So normally I did have quite a few jobs with Colin in commercials and a lot in TV. And Anthony, his producer, phoned me up and said, "Oh, we've got another script. I sent you the script for Colin. Get facts through. And you just got to go, oh, there you go. Right, go and do that one then." It's like, oh, that's quite a nice script. I remember actually going down on the train at Dover. I think I decided to get the train down there and hire a car, and thinking, this is quite tricky. How am I going to And I hadn't really seen the back. I knew that Colin had mentioned that he used to have to walk around the block with the agency producer, pacing it out. It's 90 seconds, it's
right.
Exactly 90 seconds. You can't go, oh, if you get it in 87, that'd be all right. Or if it's 93, that'd be all right. And I went going down there, and I thought, right, all I can do is find places that will last longer than 30 seconds per thing. So at least you can top and tail it. That right. If you walk from there to there, then as long as it's more, I'm not going to sit there and get all complicated about it. There's a lot of bigger brains than me getting complicated about it. So I just thought, just find 30 seconds of location at each one.
Wow.
And and in fact, I found a really good one. Actually, the first Dover Cliffs one, I remember we found it, and I got a phone call from the National Trust saying, you go there because there's a nesting pair of peregrine falcons, which there's only 2 in the country. Oh, right. In fact, they didn't tell me why initially, and I was kept badgering them, going like, you got to tell me why we can't do it. You can't just say that. Yeah. And then they said, no, this is it. You can't do it. Definitely can't do it. But then luckily there was a place just literally half a mile down the road where we could get it all. The hard bit was the logistics on it, Cole, really, wasn't it? Yeah. It's like getting the car parked so we can get the truck up there, and getting the boxing ring on there without people killing themselves. And yeah, it's but it wasn't at the time. It wasn't really. It didn't feel like, because we were doing lots of good ads. There were a lot of good ads going on at the time. Right. So you just kind of thought this is amongst a load of good ads.
How much did it cost to do? Was it a big budget?
Well, I was doing a bit of research. I remember Anthony saying it's 350 grand.
That's it.
Was it?
Yeah.
350, 3 days.
Wow.
And even that at the time wasn't an awful lot of money, Keith. You know,
Yeah.
but I remember Shots used to have a bed in their production office. Every time someone had a producer had a budget of £1 million on their computer, they'd ring a bell like it was like in Lloyd's. They go, yeah, a million, and then they would just sign it off, you know. But we'd rarely do anything under sort of £500,000, Carl, would we? You know, unless it's like a McDonald's ad or something like that, you know.
Yeah, which is a one day or
Yeah, yeah.
Well,
And who chose Ray as the spokesman?
really weirdly enough, because I mean, I think that's how the partnership worked really well with the creators, Chaz and Jim, and because I sort of cast it, and I was sort of being slightly serious with the casting. I know I was looking for people who I thought were just kind of, you know, good serious actors that would play it quite straight and everything. And it was the creatives. They said, well, we've seen somebody we quite like, and they were very good. You know, it's like they wanted to, I think, have Ray, but they don't tell you directly that you must have him. They want you to come to that conclusion. And it was the most brilliant choice because Ray, he's larger than life, but I still think, you know, he played the performance perfectly, you know, with perfection. And it was there. I don't know whether they'd seen him somewhere or whether maybe he'd even gone for an interview for another commercial they were working on. But he was, I mean, absolutely perfect.
He was. I remember at the time, Cole, I remember like him being, you casting him and it was being cast. And even like a year later, or 2 years later, he would never have got cast for that because if it's a soft drink, it'd have been like, oh, is he slightly, you know, he was not, but he's just a big bloke, you know.
Yeah.
And they would never do that. You'd never get that now. There'd be 1,000 people saying, oh, you can't, oh no, it's reflecting on that drink that he's a bit overweight, and you know, he wouldn't have got him through.
Well, talking of political incorrectness, I mean, there's that wonderful line in there about the French student being all hair gel and fancy loafers, and some might say that the whole production is kind of, I mean, okay, on the nice side of it, you'd say it's patriotic. On other sides, you might say it's slightly racist. But I mean, do you reckon that you get away with that advert these days?
No, I can't think you would. No, I think was it jingoistic? Was it I don't xenophobic? It was all of those things. I just think it's of that moment, and maybe for a couple of years after that you could still do it. Maybe for a decade after that you could still do it. I think the biggest issue really was that there was the concept of a single shot, a concept of where it started on a close-up of Ray and it ends, you know, above the white cloth ago with the boxing ring, and the pace had to build. It couldn't stutter. It couldn't race ahead and slow down. It had to, and the pace is perfect. It had to be paced like that. And even with the clients that were, you know, very young and very imaginative, even they were in the pre-production meeting saying, well, where's the close-up going to go? You know, where are we going to see the can? Where are we going to see the product? And Chaz and Jim, the creators, said, we're not going to see it. You aren't going to see it. There isn't going to be any cut in there.
The illusion's blown, isn't it? As soon as you do that, then it's like, well, that's the cut.
Not do any of that. Yeah. And they said that's clear. And then they said, well, is there anything you can do to kind of help us on this? And we said, I think I said, or somebody said, well, we can maybe heighten the purple on the truck of the Tango colors, or maybe we just heighten the colors on the can.
Right.
I mean, you know, maybe if you're looking at 4K production now, that you perhaps would see that, but I don't think you would have seen it then. And I think it was just that question of even at the very last minute. I think what I did, I had a storyboard at that pre-production meeting, which we had a hotel somewhere in central London, where the storyboard was just a long, you know, it was school photographs, you know, those ones that pan across. It was just like a massive, you know, there's the beginning, there's the end. And imagine this is just a cut. Where's the product going to go? It's not going to go. And then they just said, okay, fine.
Who ordered the Harrier jump jets?
Well, the other thing when I was actually when I went up and I did, there was kind of before I got the job, there's all sorts of meetings you had about because I'd done drama. The last thing I talked about was the actors. The last thing I talked about was directing actors because that's what I did. I tended to talk about how do I make it work. And in the end, they knew I can make it work. They wanted me to talk about actors. So I used to keep going in for the meetings. And then at one meeting, I went in and I just said, I've got this idea at the end of the commercial. Why don't you have 3 Spitfires or something, just hovering, just up there coming out? And they said, I think we can do better than that. And I said, what do you mean? So in other words, I'd already thought of, we thought of the same idea, but they wanted to make it Harrier jump jets.
They thought inspired. They thought
it was just more aggressive.
Yeah.
And I think I was being a bit whimsical with the Spitfires. A bit whimsical. And I think they just wanted, fuck off, big afterburners or whatever.
Superb. Yeah, superb.
There's your purple. There's your logo. That's what they got in the end. But they were unique.
Absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. I mean, did you guys know at the time when you were shooting it, did you know that this was a classic in the making?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. I don't know. I never thought that particularly. I thought I began to realize it had quite a long life. I began to realize that there was a celebration of the top 100 commercials about 20 years or 15 years ago. I think I had to go to some event about a decade ago to talk about it, the 20 years of Blackcurrant Tango. But actually, weirdly enough, it wasn't until I saw the piece on LinkedIn, the piece of which has kind of generated this conversation. It wasn't until then I realized that you go through that and, there's 175 people and, I'm sure people don't go on and say I don't like it. I'm sure those people can stay off.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a lot of people who would actually say, this is xenophobic. This is,
At the time, though, it was very much Britpop was going on, wasn't it, as well?
Right.
And all that sort of stuff. So there's kind of a bit of a British revival more than a thuggery kind of racism going on.
I thought it's very clever. I thought it was good. I thought it stood out because it's 90 seconds, and I thought that was good that we had the 90 seconds. And I thought once we got the invisible mending in there, I thought actually it's very clever. But it didn't run for very long. I think they wanted it banned, and they got it banned. And I think it was shown. I think we went to a pub, and it was first shown in the during the Chris Evans Friday.
Fridays, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's when it was shown. I think that's when it was,
which is perfect for it.
Yeah. So, and doesn't that just underline the whole point about when you've got a great idea, you don't need to blast it down everybody's throat all the time. You just need to air it a couple of times and let everybody else talk about it.
I think that's what happened. Yeah, I know that career-wise, it was kind of didn't really help at all with the Americans. They just never got it. I think eventually they got it. Eventually, after a couple years, they eventually. I mean, in the UK, it had an immediate effect. But I just think in terms of, and a lot of work that Greg and I did was in the States, and I think it took a while for them to quite understand.
It did. I did. I seem to remember it kind of about 3 years after, no more than that, probably 4 years after. Then they latched onto it in. I saw that old Chuck Meehan has liked it. He was one of the creative directors on that Kia job we did out in the States. They kind of got onto it about sort of 4 or 5 years later.
Long time. Yeah.
Then they'd always go, we want it just like that. And then if you do it like that, they used to say, it's a bit cussy, isn't it? Isn't it a bit isn't that a bit like, it doesn't make sense? Right. It's like, well, that's why you book Carl. This is why you booked him. And then they want to do it American traditional,
Yeah.
Well, it's like if you read that article in the LinkedIn, if you read that Chaz Bayfield talking about it, he said that, everybody called him in to do it. And then once they got in the room, they realized they didn't want this. That wasn't what they wanted. The clients weren't going to sign off on something that didn't have a product that was visible at the end or at some point. It was a nice discussion point, but
you see,
I actually went. Well,
you don't even realize, do you, in the commercial? I mean, I have to say, I've watched it. I can't remember how many times I've watched it, and I don't even think. I don't even see the product. I mean, you see it right at the very start, and then that's it, really.
Yeah. Yeah.
Funny enough, it's all over it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Talking about it, he's saying Blackcurrant Tango. He's saying it,
Saying it.
And there's flags and stuff.
Lorry,
The flags are all purple. Yeah.
purple outfits and all that. In fact, I remember on the clips going, like, it's very purple. It's all looking a bit purple.
So what's the best compliment you've had from there?
They're all quite impressive when you read them.
Yeah.
I quite like the one. I quite like the comment where somebody, I can't remember. I need to go down. I think it was a woman. Actually, she said, because if you read 175 comments, I think my name's mentioned once or maybe twice. So somebody did actually mention my name, as if I think you had a little bit to play. But you know what? I knew this in TV and any drama. I mean, what the creatives did, you just had to put a mirror up to what they did,
right?
And in the way that they envisaged it, which is to make it kind of gritty-ish, kind of make it very British, and just make it, as I said, started with something that seemed very innocuous, very kind of handheld, bumps into the camera as he's talking. The cameraman doesn't really know that he's on the move. He thinks it's going to be a nice little kind of polite little response to the French student, and then it just builds and builds and builds. And I think that in the end, I just did what they wanted, really. And I think in the end, that's what you do. The writing was so good, and they were very prickly about the writing. They were very, very onto.
I think the good thing about it is that even today, it still stands up to the test of time. Of people still can't figure out. In fact, no one's even said. I mean, on those LinkedIn, it's like I think that one of the heads was morphed at one point, Cole, wasn't it? Rather than the body, the head was morphed. It wasn't just one cut in one place where you see.
Yeah, nobody gets the first cut. They all think it's the door.
Yeah.
It's not. No, it's way before. I always thought, and that's the other thing I always thought about it. I think if you go back to 1996 when we did it, was 97. You're going back nearly 28 years. I mean, the technology was very ploddy, and I think that everybody was looking at the technology and they kept on saying, "Oh, it's morphing technology. We're going to be morphing. That's what we're doing. We're going to turn a Jaguar into a Jaguar car, or right. We were doing stuff like that." And I just thought, actually, what you wanted it is for invisible mending.
Right.
You wanted to say if Hitchcock had that technology. However, I mean, if we wanted just to slightly shift the wings on the Harriers, they'd say come back tomorrow.
Yeah.
Now I do it on my,
do it on your phone. Yeah.
Do it on your phone, or you do it on this MacBook Max.
Right.
M4 computer.
Well,
you just do it.
I've read interviews about this advert in the past, and somebody mentioned using a China graph, to when he said, you're that, whatever as the frame, and I thought to myself, most people won't even know what a China graph is.
No. We did use a metronome all the time just to get the pace of the.
I'd tell you what, though,
and that's what Ray was really. That was the great thing about Ray, as he could deliver the dialogue all the time,
on point,
word perfect, everything, all the kind of dealing with dialogue and props of taking his clothes off and getting the gestures always in the right place, and the timing right, and then you have to remember that the little accolades that are following behind them, they're also getting morphed as well, as it were. They're also getting, heads taken off or arms into different positions. And I always thought the thing about doing the changeover, passing the baton from one location, one take to another, and as Greg's already said in the interview, 3 takes, 2 cuts, 3 locations, 2 cuts. It was that I always thought you want to be brave where you do it, where people think you didn't do it there. You did it there, where there's a little bit of reflection, but no, we did it way back there.
And also there's a foreground white that would blown it as well. So it's only background. It's not.
Yeah, it's just he goes past 3 pictures on the wall. It's right. It's right there that the actual change from first to second location takes place.
Really?
I I remember on the shoot though. I remember because I've done a shot quite a lot with Colin and stuff, and he always kind of made it look easy, or at least like he didn't care. And on this particular, I remember the clip. It was in this. You're in the back of a truck, I think, with a video playback, which was really basic.
Yeah.
And I've never seen Colin kind of concentrate for more than about in one stretch, like not, but it was like really funny. He didn't go out the back of this truck, I don't think, for about 6 hours, and it was take after take after take. The helicopter pilot was having a, saying the skid was Mark Wolf's skid was hitting the.
Well, because the rehearsal day,
yeah,
the field was wet.
Yeah,
the shooting day, the field was dry. So we had to bring Bowsers in to wet the field, and that didn't work. The blades of the helicopter were throwing up dust. So in the end, he had to go below the cliffs.
The cliff, yeah, that's right.
So he had to drop down. So the camera was really at grass level.
It was touching. I remember seeing it. It was hitting the cliff every time we went past.
Because we were getting wind was blowing up because we were in a muddy field, farm field, and the wind had changed direction. It didn't, and we tried to do wet downs. None of it worked. We just dropped the helicopter. Now you get a drone, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Superb. And of course, I guess the ultimate test of how effective it was. Did you ever hear anything about what effect it had on sales?
I don't think blackcurrant it doesn't exist anymore, does it? So
no, they call it black. They call it dark berry now. Oh,
maybe it is then. Do you know what? I think it's all part of them. Simply, it's like the orange, the tango, the slapping. It's like I think they just wanted the brand to stand out as a brand. I don't know whether they were particularly whether they wanted to just sell that product or whether they just wanted to.
At the time, everybody wanted to either do a Tango advert, a Guinness advert, or a Pop Noodles advert. If you got one of those. On Nike, you'd know you'd made it as a director if you got offered one of those. Yeah. But Pop Noodle was the same. I mean, the shittiest brand going, but their advertising was so good that everybody wanted to do it.
Yeah, superb.
I mean, I went back for lots of jobs at Howell Henry and never got. I never.
Oh no! I mean, that was a massive irony.
Got one job from them. That was it.
Yeah. That's gratitude for you, isn't it? That's gratitude, bloody agents.
Would you guys shoot another one for them?
Of course, I would. Yeah. I keep saying, give us a job.
They're talking on that LinkedIn thing, aren't they? They're on it. We should go, oi.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't need wheelchair access. I'm still standing.
And I'll tell you what, I'll stay in. I'll stand in for Ray. I've got the same physique. I've got that dad bod now.
Actually, you did.
I did think I did do another single shot. I think somebody wanted a single. It was a whiskey commercial. Did you do that, Greg? I can't remember. In a castle somewhere. And it was just a poor. I mean, the trouble is the shot themselves is still you do the mechanics and make it work.
Yeah. But in fact, Johnny Walker ripped it off a little bit a few years later. Johnny Walker did one where old matey boys walking across, and it was amazing.
Robert Carlyle, wasn't it?
Robert Carlyle.
Yeah.
Haven't
they just done that TV thing, Adolescence? Yeah, that's a doddle, that one was.
Yeah.
That's an easy one. They just kept on handing the cameras out. I mean, I know, I watched Adolescence. I said, I bet you it's that DJI camera, that one that actually just floats, the one you just pass it out the window to somebody else and then you run with it and you put it, that.
Well, it is easier now. I mean, I remember what you used to say about it would be great if we could get the camera to go around the corner, but we can't. But nowadays you can get the camera.
They can, yeah. Yeah, and you see, well, why is the shot stopped here? I know why. They're just loading it onto the drone. And there it is. It's up in the air.
That's it as well. It could only last as long as the roll of film, couldn't it, as well, before you had to do something about it.
But yeah, I think now it's just easier, I think, to do the single shot, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, gents.
What I've noticed now, though, is you look at all these, and I don't want to sound like an old man, but I'm bloody going to sound like an old man, is that you look at these shots and there's no structure to any of the shots. The camera's here, the camera's there. It's like, it's moving around. They do a tracking shot and they're trying to find the bloody subject. And, there's the craft is kind of, that was the housing days of craft, I think, in commercial.
Yeah, I think I even came in at the end of it. I think all that was, with Ridley Scott and Hugh Hudson and all that. That was even before, wasn't it? And that was.
If the crowd at Tango are watching, then we're all up for a revisit of that, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
And
good
I you know, I'm sure the creators would be as well. I think they must be.
About time.
Yeah.
About time.
Yes. Yeah.
Gents, thank you very much for your time. Talking of which, and thank you very much. And we'll hopefully be on all again soon when we're discussing the one that we've just completed for them.
Oh yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thanks very much, guys.